president's speech and the upcoming election is Democratic political strategist Steve Welchert. Thanks for joining us, Steve.
Hi, Marshall.
Nice to have you here.
Thanks for being here.
Let's start with the president's State of the Union. I mean, clearly he does not want to go out as a lame duck here. He
doesn't have much choice, and I thought one of his funnier lines was talking about all the people in the room who want to go back to Iowa. We have a similar circumstance in Colorado, too. A lot of folks in the Colorado legislature are running for the U.S. Senate or for a Senate seat from the House, so it's a lot of movement amongst politicians right now.
What is it about his speech that is going to be any different than any previous State of the Union that says, by the end of his term, I got this accomplished this year?
Well, this speech, I thought, kind of disembarked from that and said, let's talk about the future after I'm gone. That was a significant difference, I thought, with what Obama did this time versus his previous speeches or other presidents as well. A little bit different.
How do you, when you say I'm going to do this in the future, you're basically saying I'm trying to legislate from here for the next guy.
Right.
What does he put? But he has to put something in place before he leaves office that has to be picked up by the next guy. It's
a pretty big reach, and I think one of the things that spoke to a lot of people was campaign finance, too much money in politics, those kinds of things. Like there's some bipartisan agreement about, because if you talk to people in that building, in that room, they're all tired of raising money. They're all tired of the game they all have to play, and it's really tough on everybody.
Yeah, he seemed to really offer, in a way, an olive branch and to tell people, let's get this together, because we know, because we hear it from our viewers as well, people are sick of politics as usual.
Oh, they really are, and it's what's driving the presidential campaign right now. I mean, in both parties you see a very strong populist, anti-establishment wing from both parties, and they're both they have at least 30 or 40%, maybe more. We'll find out in a couple of weeks in Iowa. But they're really driving the debate and driving the discussion. I find it fascinating.
We're fresh off the most recent presidential debate for the Republicans on Thursday night. What did we learn that we didn't know previously?
Oh, I think it's still a bit of a catfight. I mean, what we're looking at from the Republican side is perhaps a structural change unlike we've seen in a long, long time. The Republicans are battling about the establishment side versus the kind of the Trump-Cruz side, and the establishment looking for their candidate is going to be Rubio, is it going to be Christie? I mean, who are they going to find? Maybe Kasich pops out of this thing at some point, but that's really the debate on the Republican side, is how can they drive the argument.
And when do you think someone will start dropping out? I mean, any day now? After Iowa?
I think the Republican primary is going to go for an awful long time, and serious people are actually talking about a brokered convention. That's highly unlikely, but it's being talked about.
I want to see that. The last convention that mattered, I couldn't even tell you what year that was.
Yeah, no, it's a lot of fun. You'd have a lot of fun covering it, of course, and it makes for a great conversation with all of us.
Well, in fact, we have some poll numbers that we want to talk about right now. On the Republican side, this was a Bloomberg poll, and it shows Ted Cruz with a 3-point lead in Iowa over Donald Trump. The Gravis poll flip-flops the two, giving Trump a 6-point lead. Waiting to see how this thing shakes out, but there was a lot of mama talk in the debate the other night.
Well, I think that the polling and methodology changes somewhat. That's why you get the flip-flop sometimes. But Cruz is making a serious move in the campaign right now. He has very good strength amongst the evangelical community in Iowa, which really dominates the Iowa caucus process. I mean, Michelle Bachmann got support from those folks. So Cruz is tapping into that. Trump's tapping into a whole different category. And the real question is, who's going to vote? Will the angry Trump people actually go to a caucus? Because a lot of them probably have never been. We know a lot of the Cruz supporters are caucus goers, so it's going to be a real interesting dynamic.
Well, there's a different poll for the quieter side of the presidential race so far, the Democratic side. Hillary Clinton leading in both of those polls, but with a smaller margin right now. And it's surprising in one of those polls. Right here you can see the Bloomberg poll where she's only leading Bernie Sanders by 2%. But when you look at the Gravis poll, it's 21% in favor of Hillary Clinton. And that's a big difference. Is this about the methodology, or are we talking to completely different people who are going to be voting?
We're talking to different kinds of folks. The Gravis poll, they do a push-button poll kind of thing. You get an automated call at your home, and so first of all, you have to have a home phone, which is only older voters, not younger voters, not millennials, for example. So that makes it trickier. And Iowa caucus attendees love to try and upset the apple cart, and I think they're going to try to do that this year with Bernie as well. Bernie has tremendous support amongst the millennials, the younger voters, ironically. Hillary, not so much. She's got more of the old, staid, Democratic institutional voters, and so again, the dynamic on the Iowa caucus will be who actually shows up it's not just a vote like people are used to walking in, pulling the trigger for your ballot. You have to go and spend a couple hours at your school cafeteria or your library and really hang out with your neighbors and make sure your voice is heard.
Yeah, you have to wonder if there's some Hillary Clinton fatigue since her name has been out there.
I think that's fair. I mean, I think there is fatigue, and I think it's a little bit of fatigue and also just kind of anti-establishment politics across the board in both parties across this country from coast to coast. And so she's going to be a victim of some of that as well.
Thank you, Steve.
You bet.